Okay, what I'll be speaking about today is, the title is Freedom is Not Free. Alright, you may wonder why this very funny title. Well, the reason is this. One of the things about reflecting on life is obviously reflecting on death. And there's some meditation practice where you go to a cemetery and in the deep of the night and meditate next to a corpse. And then I think you gain tremendous insight about death and about life. But I don't think I have the guts to do that. Now, the next best thing is something which I actually enjoy doing, and that is going to memorials, to cemeteries, in the daytime, of course, and to look at the inscription. Some of these people who pass away, and they've got very lovely inscription describing that person. My favorite site is Fort Canning. If you've been to Fort Canning, you see the tombstone, I think, that says a lot about the people who contributed so much to the history of Singapore. And so it was not surprising when I was in Washington recently for a business trip. And I headed for a place called the Mall that's linking the Lincoln Memorial all the way to the Capitol here. It's a very long strip of land, and in between them a lot of monuments and a lot of war memorials. Okay, so I've got this natural affinity towards the war memorial, to learn about death and to learn about life. So I went to, there's a part next to the Lincoln Memorial where most of the war memorials are situated. The Second World War, Vietnam War, Korean War, and so on and so forth. I think in America they have no lack of wars. They've been involved in so many wars that there are so many memorials to match the number of wars that they fought. And indeed, when you look at some of these inscriptions, they are very, very inspiring. Young people who die for a cause. And then I came across this inscription. I think it's a Korean war memorial. This inscription that says, "Freedom is not free." And it got me to reflect very deeply on the meaning of that. We take freedom for granted. We take freedom as though it's our given right. And indeed it is. But I think this inscription reminds us that there is certain responsibility, there are certain things that we have to do to gain that freedom. And for the young men, young women who died in the Korean War, for the American cause, rightly or wrongly, I think you can see that they fought for that freedom, and hence inscription, "Freedom is not free." And actually this got me thinking about the state of affair here in Singapore, the state of affair, the situation that we are always bombarded with in our Buddhist practice. Yes, we are all seeking freedom, we are seeking happiness, but to believe that that is our given right, that you just sit down quietly and then very soon you'll be reaching the state of happiness and freedom, I think can be quite self-deluding. We have to work at it. Alright, so really the theme of my talk today is putting in effort in our practice. I'm not suggesting that we fight for it. Fight will be too strong a word. But in a way it also suggests that there is always a constant battle that we have to fight to gain that freedom, to gain that happiness. Every day, even when you sit down in our meditation, just for 15 minutes, more so if you sit for 1 hour, just trying to keep your mind still, trying to ward off all this bombardment of senses and all that. It's so difficult. There's always a constant battle within us. And we have to fight for that freedom to a certain extent. The weapon you're talking about is not armory, not ballistic missiles and all that. but many of the skills that the Buddha taught us. And those are the weapons that we can use to gain the freedom that we are seeking for. Okay, so effort is very important. And what made me think more closely about this topic is the fact that over the last few months, I think we have seen a lot of very, very interesting events that make us wonder, or not so much wonder, but perhaps to question what we need to do as Buddhists to make sure that our practice remains on the path. Okay, I'll talk about 3 events. There are obviously more than 3 events, but 3 very interesting events that I thought we can share with each other what we think about it and how we can continue to put in effort in our path towards enlightenment. The 3 events are the aware case. I think every one of us are very familiar with it. And then the case about a very well-known monk who have to face justice. And thirdly, I think there was a newspaper report maybe 2 Sundays ago in newspaper about an ex-monk who make a living out of putting tattoos in people's body and claiming that that gave extra protection. Okay, all these events actually make us think and sit down and ask ourselves, hey, as Buddhists, what can we do? What do we think about all these things? In fact, in a way, question us to question our belief and our practice. Okay, so let's take one by one, the aware case. I think many of you are probably familiar with the case. I don't think I need to go into the gory details. There was a lot of entertainment, a lot of fun. So much so that when it's over, a friend of mine said, your life in Singapore is going to be boring again. Nothing to look forward to in the newspaper and the blogs and so on and so forth. Yeah, it was full of entertainment and full of fun. But I think in that episode, it is not so much about who is right, who is wrong. I think I'll leave that for a different platform to discuss. We're not here to make judgment, and I think we shouldn't. But I think the important lesson for us to learn from there is a lesson of tolerance, the lesson of for maybe being the word very cliche by now, very inclusive. But really the question of tolerance. On the surface of it all, this episode appears to be a group trying to dominate or using a secular organization to promote their cause. And what happens after that is a lot of emotions or a lot of bad feelings towards that particular group. And worse still, if you name that group as and generalize and say, oh, all Christians are like that, then I think we are totally wrong. And it's not a very useful way to gain something out of a rather unfortunate incident like this. It's very easy for people who don't understand this and looking at a small group claiming to represent a larger group, and for that larger group, the entire Christian community to be condemned. We should not fall to that kind of temptation. All right. What's important for us to understand is that there are within every religion the goodness, things that we talk about in Buddhism, compassion, kindness, generosity, forgiveness. Read the Bible, read the Quran. They are all there. And a small group that claim to represent this larger group does not represent the larger group. They are probably pushing it based on their own interpretation, rightly or wrongly. But never for once believe that because of what they did, then the entire communities are like that. Okay? Remember when the Islam fundamentalists went around bombing and causing so much destruction? Again, there was some ill feeling towards the Muslim community, and again, that is something very, very unnecessary. If you have the good fortune like I have to meet the ordinary Muslim, or even not so ordinary, the highly cultivated Muslim, they are indeed wonderful people. Perhaps more wonderful than some of the people who claim to be Buddhists. Compassion, kindness, and things like that. So much in their DNA, so much in part of them. And this is a common platform that we should all seek. Whatever religion we believe in, that in every religion there's this common platform of compassion, of kindness, of generosity. Alright, a case like aware and all that should be taken in a different platform, not a religious platform, not a contest between one religion versus another. For any group to join the fray and say, well, this is against my religion, this is pro-Christians and so on and so forth, I think it's taking that whole episode into the wrong spin. And I think more importantly, Singapore and every one of us may not learn a good lesson out of that episode. Okay. So this question about whether our space is invaded, intruded and all that, I don't think it's really a relevant question. All right? And every one of us also have that responsibility, that we are living in Singapore that is multiracial, multicultural, multi-religious, that just as we expect that group to respect us, I think we ourselves have at times to be mindful that we have to be respectful of other religion as well. Okay, and it is through this that you start thinking about your own practice, the practice that calls on you to be tolerant, the practice that calls on us to be loving, metta, to everyone, regardless. You know, if you read the Karaniyam Metta Sutta, I think the call is very clear. It's not loving kindness to just certain group of people, loving kindness to people who just believe in the same cause as you believe, but it's loving kindness to everybody, sentient beings, big, small, whatever colors they are, whatever shapes. And that's really a very powerful way of thinking. Okay. This episode also reminds me of something that happened a few years back. I don't know whether you remember that some years ago the government, or in fact people were complaining about, you know, those giant joysticks, huge joysticks that pop up every time there's, I think, 7 months or what. And every year that goes by, the joystick get bigger and bigger and bigger. Why? Because of competition, because you know, you have a joystick this high, not good enough. You know, your neighbor has even higher one. Then next year you try to match and you go even higher. And I suppose the belief is the higher it is, the nearer it is to heaven. So there you are, you see. And again, that is really, when you go to that extreme, you have forgotten one thing, that you're living in Singapore that is so crowded, that the joystick that you put in your altar and all is likely to affect somebody nearby who may not have the same kind of thinking as you have, right? You may have this thinking that, well, the joystick is our way to heaven and our prayers will be answered. Well and good, but your neighbors may not believe the same thing, and they're going to suffer the fumes and the smell from your joystick. And the higher your joystick is, the more difficult it is for them to understand. The more agony they have to suffer until your joystick gets burned off, then fresh air again. So again, this is something that we all have to be mindful of. And thankfully, in those years, the government consulted the Taoist religious leaders and the Buddhist leaders, and every one of them say quite clearly, this is not important practice. How long or how high is your joystick is not important. And then they make a ban, and the big joysticks is no longer a problem anymore. So if you're not mindful, this is what can happen. We pushed and push and push, and the joystick get higher and higher and higher, until one day somebody come in and say, look, this is all nonsensical, cut it off. That's okay if things are done in a very peaceful way, but worse still, you might even get a very nasty reaction and giving your religion, your belief and all that a bad name, you know, and something for us to be really very concerned about. So bear this in mind. The episode really is not about whether they are right, they are wrong, whether homosexuality should be promoted and this and that. But really, to me, it is a lesson in tolerance. It's a lesson in understanding that every religion within them, there's a common platform that all of us can seek and unify ourselves so that we can make this country, Singapore, a much better place for every one of us to practice. Okay? Okay, I hope I'm not sounding like a government propaganda machine. Okay, the second episode is about our very well-known monk who have to face a court of justice. And again, I think it stirred up the entire Buddhist community. And many of us probably will be approached by non-Buddhist friends and ask this question, what's going on? You know, your very highly regarded monk now is have to face the court of law. Again, I don't think we want to be judgmental here. Let's leave it to the court. What I would like to do is to really ask ourselves, what is the best way to respond in a situation like this? Obviously, we need to, if you like, make a stand. Friends come to us and ask, is this Buddhist practice, to have monks that collect money and keep credit cards and so on and so forth? I think we do have a certain responsibility. First of all, to ask ourselves, what really is going on down here? To also, in a way, examine the Vinaya rules, get ourselves familiar with the Vinaya rules, all right, so that we ourselves can then be useful to our friends who are trying to understand Buddhism. Okay, so this whole business of the monastics vis-a-vis the lay people, I think goes all the way back to the Buddha's time. Okay, in the old days in rural India, in fact, there are so many of the practices are still being practiced in rural India, where when somebody renunciate, okay, like in the case of Buddha, he came from a very well-to-do family, son of a king and all that. He renunciated. And in the Buddha of old, that is almost like an accepted thing to do. I mean, if you decide that, okay, you have enough of society and you want to live the hermit's life, it is accepted by the Indian society to do so. And in fact, because of its acceptance, the lay people, in fact, look at this group of renunciate or renunciant as an accepted part of society, and to give their support. All right, the lay people will then support them in whatever ways they can, so that they can continue with their practice. They spend their time doing meditation, practice, and so on and so forth. And they'll be freed from doing the manual tasks, trying to find a livelihood, looking for food, shelter, and things like that. So the society give them tremendous support, lots of support. So in Buddha's time, this is probably one of the things that you find as a condition that's very conducive for people who have renunciated. And over the years, I think the support that the lay people have for the monastics continues even until today. The question of money was brought to a focus probably about 100 years after Buddha's Parinibbana. There was, as the sutta goes, there was a group of monks who decided that, well, it's okay, to go around on alms round after noon. After your last meal of the day, you're supposed to retreat to the monastery and, just stay within the monastery grounds. But this group of monks decided otherwise and said, well, I think it's okay. The Buddha didn't say anything about not going out. So they went out on alms round and, in fact, also collected money. And they make this almost a common practice among this group of monks. And it was drawn to the attention of a highly regarded monk. And this monk think that, no, better stop this. It's just not a very good sign. The monks are going out there to collect money. All right, and there are many reasons for these monks to be very concerned. Because to him, he thinks that the collection of money and silver and gold and so on, and in a way like collecting all this material possession, will very likely lead the monastics on a very dangerous path, a path of attachment, going against the whole idea of renunciation. All right? There is, even then, also a very strong support from the lay people. And the thinking is that the monastics, the monks, should live on simple means. You've got what is provided for by the lay people, your 4 requisites. And there's nothing in the sutta or in the Buddha's teachings that says that you should go and accumulate more than what you need. In fact, the Buddha keep on reminding his monks that you should just go for the minimum. Just go for the minimum. What you need, that's good enough. So much so that there was an episode where I think one of the monks came in one day with more than 1 pair of robes. I think they were allowed only 2 pairs, so that when they wash, they have another one to wear. But this particular monk came back as a donation from some rich merchant, more than 2 pairs. All right, I'm not sure whether he was showing off that he has got more than 2 pairs. But the Buddha have none of this. He said, look, you don't need so many robes. So it was very clear that the Buddha expect of his monks to have just the minimum. And because of, going back to this story, because of that, the second council was formed. It was becoming a very serious problem that this group of monks who went around collecting money and all that threatened to even break away, to have a schism, break away from the mainstream Buddhist Sangha and form their own Sangha. So it was that serious. So the second council was formed, and as you know, the council consists of elders and highly respected. And in those days, they were actually arahants that attended the council meetings. Okay, and you're not talking about 1 or 2 arahants, but hundreds of arahants coming together to convene the council. And the second council was formed, and unanimously they agreed that no money, no silver, no gold. Stick to the 4 requisites, minimum requirements. So that is in a way entrenched in the Vinaya rules. All right. So of course, over time, Buddhism then took on different flavor in its different tradition, the Mahayana, the Theravada, and every one of them have their own interpretation. The Theravada perhaps come closest to the original teaching that a monk should not have money. And this is upkept in monks like the Ajahn Brahm, Ajahn Chah, and people of his lineage. And indeed, when you look at them, they show that it is possible, even till today, to keep to a tradition that has been passed down more than 2,600 years ago. Ajahn Brahm has once said that he go from places to places without even a credit card and no cash, no nothing, and he get by. He has never for one of food or anything more than just what he need to get on day to day. And in fact, he mentioned about how anything more than what he needs is always a problem and a danger. Right? Remember the story he always tell about one of the lay disciples who came to him asking him what he need and whether he need a few bahts more. And the more he gave, the more he get tempted, and his mind get all kinds of thoughts about what he can buy with 100 more bahts, 200 more bahts. And that's really true. So a monk who are committed, monks who are committed to renunciation would have to believe that renunciation really means what it is, that you forego everything that is, leave everything behind you, all right? And just stick to your basic necessities. In fact, if you, those of you who know the Metta Sutta, the second verse, there's a line that goes something like this: Santu sakocha suparocha Apakicho cha sala hukavuti. What it means is that as an upright person, here of course can refer to monk or even to lay person, that we ought to be easily contented, that we ought to be just being easy to please, not going beyond what you need just for you to get on day by day. The material good is just a nourishment for your body. But what's important is the cultivation of your mind. And for the cultivation of your mind, you don't need even any credit cards at all, not to talk about 4 credit cards, 5 credit cards. You don't need any of this material possession. Okay. Now the next episode is the ex-monk who believed that, or so he claimed that he was a Thai monk and who came here, and I think it was in a newspaper 2 Sundays ago, and a big page story about him practicing tattoo, and people who go to him and have their body parts tattooed and thinking that it will give them special protection. Again, there are many people who come to me and say, hey, is this Buddhism? And I think this really make us, or rather force us to make a stand. We have to tell our friends what Buddhism is all about. And every time you have stories like this, is rather than see this as an affront or as an attack to Buddhism, it's really an opportunity for us to tell our friends and even Buddhists also what Buddhism is all about. I think here is a very simple case of believing that external things can help us, protect us. We put a tattoo here, a tattoo there. That tattoo can protect you, get you out of whatever you want and so on. Or for that matter, to have an amulet here. And then some people believe in that, that's fine. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But to believe that is the sole means in which you can gain protection, to believe that that is your happiness depends on this external object, I think will actually lead to a lot of unhappiness. All right? I think the Dharma and the Buddha's teaching is very clear about this, that really the responsibility to get happiness, to attain happiness, depends on your own very hard work, effort that you have to put in, not through all these external factors. The Buddha himself also said that I'm not God. If you have problems, by all means you look at him, how serene, how tranquil, how calm, and hopefully that will inspire you to want to be like him, to meditate so that you can be serene and calm and sort out your own problem. But just by praying to him and not doing anything more, that's not going to help you solve your problem. So that is, again, a very good way for us to be reminded of what Buddhism really is and what Buddhism isn't. Okay, so these are 3 incidents which I thought help us put a focus on what we are practicing. Okay, we practice meditation, we go for Dharma talks and so on and so forth. But while Buddhism is a very individual practice, we can't run away from the fact that we are part of an environment that comprises of many other people, many other factors, comprises of people who may not believe or think the same way as you do. How then do you make your practice, bring your practice alive under this sometimes very difficult conditions, very difficult environment? Okay. So in a way it was quite refreshing and quite nice that I think not too long ago on Vesak Day, those of you who have missed the articles on Vesak Day by Wong Kim Ho, there's a copy of the article pinned on the wall outside the office. You look at the story, I think that in a way is a very nice reminder of how people look at us Buddhists. You see the picture of our brothers and sisters sitting in Fort Canning so quietly, with Ajahn Chatamalo leading the meditation. Many friends came to me after all those episodes about bad Buddhist monks and all that. They say, wow, so I understand now what Buddhists are all about. And in fact, that's a thing that somehow sticks in the mind of a lot of people. The Buddhists are calm, serene, and peaceful. All right, so that article, in fact, I think is a very good article. So if you not read it, go ahead and read it. Expressing also some of the BF members. NG was interviewed and so on and so forth. And there was also a Christian who was interviewed, and even though he's a Christian, he comes to our talk. And again show the power of how you use the goodness of a religion to transcend all these barriers that we put when we use the name of religion to defend ourselves. So this good Christian actually say, well, Buddhism, there's something in Buddhism that he likes, and he comes to our talk. Okay, so while we have something for us to think about, there's also something for us to cheer about. I think the Visa Day article is a very, very good example of that. And again, it's a very good testimony that people like us here in Buddhist fellowship doing our part to make people understand what Buddhism is all about. It's not about rituals, it's not about putting tattoos in your body, it's not about burning joss sticks, and the higher it is, the better it is. But it's about quiet contemplation, it's about quiet meditation. It's basically about being good people so that you can be useful to society. Okay, which brings me to the other point. And the point about going back to freedom again. That I must say that when you look at all these war memorials and so on and so forth, that when we look at freedom, we have to understand that freedom comes with a responsibility. There's no such thing as totally free and you can do what you like. I grew up in the 60s, or at least, when I was growing up, the 60s was really an exciting time because, West, the young people was rebelling against the older generation and they want to do their thing. They say, I want to be free. All right, the old generation is really boring and I don't like to adopt their lifestyle. I want to be free, this new generation and all that. So yeah, they can be free, and what do? They have free sex, free drugs, free this, free that. That is freedom without responsibility. To me, I think that's nonsensical freedom. If you want freedom, you have to be responsible. You want to have sex, there's no such thing as free sex. There's always a lot of consequence that come out of it. And you think you can blow your mind off with drugs and rock music that and so on. That again is not going to lead you to freedom. In fact, that's going to bind you even more. So this battle cry of freedom, 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 sometimes we have to be very careful. Okay, it comes with a responsibility. So as practicing Buddhists, when we talk about the ultimate goal, Nibbana, freedom, happiness, continue maintain those goals. I think this is a very, very important, very noble goal. Never give it up. Never for one lose sight that that's our ultimate goal. But remember that along the way, we are living in the real world. We probably may not have the luxury of just hiding ourselves in a corner, practicing without any external factors whatsoever. But the fact that we are part of a larger system means that we have to be mindful of other people. Means that when we talk about freedom, we have to talk about freedom with a certain responsibility. All right? So, and it calls for us as Buddhists to also be mindful that we can be a very good citizen to this place. All right, the society that supports us, the environment that supports us, while we go on our own inner cultivation, our own inner practice, that will help us to deepen ourselves spiritually. But at the same time, I think there's this responsibility that what they have cultivated, the goodness in you, can then be given back to the society, so that the society can then in return support you. Okay? One example would be, for example, a practice of metta, practice of tolerance, forgiveness, patience. I think those are really not exclusive to the Buddhists, I must say, but I think more than other religions, I think this really is something very, very entrenched in our Buddhist practice. Now, if every one of us can be that ideal Buddhist, very, very deep in loving kindness, in metta, in all the four Brahma Viharas, I'm sure the society that we live in will be a lot better. Singapore will be a lot happier place, and I'm sure we will all have a much higher happiness index if every one of us practice that way. But of course we are not seeing that. Only a few of us are like that. But how then, again, there's a responsibility for all of us to see how we can then transmit this, how we can, through our influence, radiate all this goodness so that it can be a lot more pervasive. And that's what I meant by living or practicing in a very responsible manner. Okay, we are almost, if you like a plant growing in an environment. Okay, for the plant to grow, you need your nutrients from the soil, you need water from the skies, you need good air to keep you growing. But for the plant to grow, you yourself have to give back to the environment. The plant can never grow if you don't give back. Because after some time, you're taking so much from the environment that you drain off the environment, it becomes devoid of many of these things that keep you alive. And then you end up in a desert. The plant does not even see the light of day, and then that's it. So for the plant to grow, it must give back. And indeed, if you look at how nature have sustained itself, it's a very interesting case of seeing how the plant takes so much from the environment and how it's able to give back. Right? Through transpiration, it takes the water, and then after that, it just takes as much as it needs, the rest goes up to the sky. The dead leaves would settle down to the ground and becomes nutrient for the soil. And the air, carbon dioxide, and out goes oxygen. So we can see that the plant, while it takes so much from the environment, returns back maybe more to the society. And in that way, the environment and the society can continue to support the plant for it to grow into a beautiful tree. And in this garden of life, it's not just, we are not the only plant. There are many other plants, many other trees. Everyone with their own belief, everyone with their own religion will be that different trees that you see. And hopefully every one of these trees can be the same as the plant that you are, taking from the environment, returning from the environment, that we can have a beautiful garden that every one of us can grow and strive towards happiness and towards Nibbana. Okay? So that's my short talk, and I hope this will give you some reflection of our practice. The main thing, as I say, is to really put effort in our practice. It's very, very important. There will be a lot of times when our practice will be called into question. And there will be a lot of times when people ask, what are you Buddhists doing all the time? Just sitting down and don't care about the world. Tell them, no, actually Buddhists do care a lot about the world. If you read the sutta, the Sikala Sutta is a very good example. The Buddha's teaching is not just about your own internal spiritual cultivation, but it is about how you give back to society, how you relate to your parents, how you as an employer relate to your employees, how you as an employee relate to the employers. If you do become a king or a queen one day, you have a responsibility to your subjects. As all described in the Sikala Sutta. there's this responsibility that every one of us have to be mindful of. Okay, so thank you very much.
Okay, anybody got any questions? I think Brother Yap had given about 50 minutes of very, very good and exciting talks, and also very careful talk, because I think he touched on very sensitive subjects. That is, that is politics also of Singapore. Okay, anybody, any questions? Or if you are not comfortable in giving questions, you can just write notes and then we'll answer later. Okay, now there's a small announcement. Okay, if any one of you are interested in any of the sutta, you can go to the net directly, access to Insight Tonight, okay, and you can get all the suttas that you want, FOC, okay?
Well, you need not stand up and ask questions. If you have any thoughts that you'd like to share, please feel free to do so.
Henry?
Thank you, Brother Yap. Just 2 comments. The word jihad, we hear the word jihad and we actually get frightened, thinking of it as a holy war against the infidels and all that. But actually, initially, when it was used, jihad means an internal struggle and your own effort to actually quell your own defilement. So it is actually in keeping with a lot of the teachings of various religions. The second comment is that since your talk is on effort, I'd like to mention this formula by Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein has commented that if any religion that can stood the test of scientific theory and all that, it is Buddhism, because it's very rational, very scientific. And as you know, his famous equation is E equals mc squared. So in this respect to your talk, E is actually effort. Enough effort will lead to M, mindfulness. Enough effort will lead to concentration. And if you double it, it will eventually lead to nirvana.
Just to add on, those doing jihad are jihad, those who understand Malay.
Well, that's Brother Henry Yeo, and thank you very much. Those of you who went to the Visa concert, you probably noticed Brother Yeo and lovely Sister Shirley up on the stage dancing. Thank you very much. That's a very, very nice way of putting it.
Hello. Hi. I have a question. In Singapore, often we give, after prayers or talks by monks, we always give the monks a red packet. So this comes to the second example you gave, where monks should not be accredited to credit cards or money. So, but we are, in a way, are we doing something wrong here? Tempting them in a way? So, that will clarify. So please clarify that on that. Thanks.
Well, if you give red packet to Ajahn Brahm, he will not refuse it, but he make it clear that it goes to his monastery, not to him, and he will not touch the red packet. So if you, out of good intention, that you want to hand him a red packet, don't feel offended if he says, no, don't touch. Usually, someone will be alongside him, and that person will then collect the red packet on his behalf. But the thing is that he make it very clear that it goes to the monastery, not to his own bank account or his own personal account. So that is one way to, in a way, if you don't feel comfortable about giving money to monks, test them out, see whether it's meant for his monastery or for his own account. If it's for monastery, I think it's okay. I mean, frankly, I think we should support the monastery and the effort that they're putting in. But if it's kind of dubious, they don't say very clearly whether it's monastery or to themselves, then do be very careful. All right, you read of stories of bogus monks who, these are professional monks who go out in the daytime to beg, and they insist on money. If you don't give them money, they'll scold you. So there are a lot of monks that give Buddhist monks a bad name. So be careful of those. Don't give them money. Don't give them red packet. Okay. So really, it is open your eyes. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with giving red packets, provided that you know where it goes to. Okay. Anybody else have a different view on this? Yes.
Recently, a month ago, my mother died, and we used an undertaker. Of course, we make arrangements for our own chanting group to come, and from the Buddhist library among to say prayers and at the wake and at the funeral, you see. But on the actual day itself, after her body was embalmed, so, because of shortage of time, we depended on the undertaker to get their own monk, you see. So the monk came, of course, we want to reciprocate with a stranger monk to us, and so we asked how much. So he says $200 would be a fair amount. So we prepared an ang pao. It was a Mahayana monk. We put $200 as advice. And what really shocked me after he did this chant, when I gave him the ang pao, before he received it, he kept on questioning, how much? And after I received him, within less than 30 seconds later, he actually opened the ang pao to count the money. So, just a warning, sometimes maybe if you have other ways to get people to say blessings, maybe you yourself could learn some words to say, when the body is put in before the coffin is closed, rather than to depend on these commercial monks.
Yeah, thanks, Henry, Brother Yu again. In fact, there's a chanting group in BF, right? That
I think there is a group we are affiliated with, that is A Pasiko. So any one of you who had relatives that passed away, and you can request BF so that we can connect up and what is the most convenient time. I think most of the chanting group in fact BF members, and then it is free of charge. Okay, all these people are volunteers. Depending on the day who is free, okay, so they will go on that day. Okay, any one of you, I mean, if even relative who are Buddhist, it's a very meaningful kind of ceremony. Anybody have not or want to have not gone to this kind of service, or you have not seen this kind of service, maybe one of these days you are interested, we can pass you a message, and then you can just visit them, join us, It's pretty meaningful, actually. It tells you how to conduct maybe what we call a farewell party, but actually also for the living, actually. The session is actually for the living, so that we know how to live. The person that passed away, but how about the living? The people that's living, this is an opportunity for you to learn. Because one of these days, any one of us will be like the person that is in the coffin. So, you still got time to practice, So you don't wait until that day and somebody chant for you. Okay? So if anybody is interested, you can always come and see us, approach any of the Exco members, or actually get to the BF office, and we will link you up. Okay?
okay, there's another way to reflect on death. Join them, and then you be chanting over someone in the coffin, and it's very meaningful, as Brother J.T. Poe says. And you don't have to give them ang pao, right? They will not want to accept. And one way, if you really want to give something, can always make a donation to BF. Okay, any other questions or comments?